What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best fire warrior build in Path of Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid game and end game. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest burning damage possible and much more. If you're looking for this build on the website, then click my link in this video description or the pinned comment. This setup's main focus is to scale Ignite from our attacks and target big enemy groups, to then set them on fire and explode. And one of the most powerful skills that we have in our arsenal is the Hammer of the Gods, which does incredible amount of single target damage with no element penalty. So Ignite makes the most out of this, by effectively extending the damage of this hit many times over, in order to destroy big targets like the bosses or tanky rare monsters. Ignite effect does damage based on the size of the hit that has been generated. And of course, like most melee builds, the armor explosion was nerfed, but as our main focus is on fire, so our particular setup was not impacted as much as other melee builds. And currently, this is by far the best warrior build in the game. If you are looking for a powerful single target and AoV fire build, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the warrior, and our Ascendancy is the Titan. Then for the first skill we have the Hammer of the Gods with support gems such as the Heft, Fire Infusion and the Primal Armament. Then second we got the Leap Slam with the Jagged Ground, Holy Descent and Fire Exposure. Then next we got the Bone Shatter with the Impact Shockwave, Execute and Eternal Flame. Next we have the Perfect Strike with the Window of Opportunity, Martial Tempo and the Fire Penetration. Next up we have the Infernal Cry with Premeditation, Corrupting Cry and the Dazing Cry. Then for one of the last ones we got the Seismic Cry with just the Enraged War Cry. Next we have the Stampede with the Aftershock, Momentum and the Magnified Effect. Next up we also got the Herald of the Ash with Vitality, Clarity and the Fire Mastery. And finally, for our last one, we have the Overwhelming Presence with Cannibalism and the Herbalism. These gems will start out on focusing on dealing generic physical damage and progressing mostly like a normal melee build. And then our conversion to the fire and scaling Ignite will happen closer to about level 60, towards the end of campaign, once you have enough talent points to start investing into the fire talents. And at that point, you will be able to rely on Infernal Cry skill and Avatar of the Fire Keystone for converting your physical damage to the fire and ignites. Next, we also have our leveling build, in case if you're starting your journey from level 0, and you won't use it up until about level 25, where you should start getting our most important skills like the Stampede and the Hammer of the Gods. So first off, we have the Earthquake skill with the support gem like the Lassacrate and the Fist of War. Next we have the Shockwave with the Overabundance and the Bloodlust. Next we also got the Maze Strike with just Rage. And then finally we're using the Rolling Slam with the Martial Tempo. This is your basic setup up until you get our build's two most important skills. In the early stages of progression, we're using the Earthquake and the Shockwave as our main ability combo alongside the Maze Strike. Next up we have our passive tree. And if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guides. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this melee damage node. Then go like this until we get the brutal and the smash nodes. Then from here we want to go up top a bit, and then get this burn away. Now we go from where we left off and keep going until the burning strikes. Then now we again keep going like this until we get to this point, and then go down a bit to the beef node. And also you want to get all of these small nodes around them. Next up let's go back to the main path and keep going all the way to the end. And where the path splits, we first of all want to go to the right and take this big keystone called the Avatar of Fire. And also grab these two notable nodes called the Overheating Blow and the Fulmination. Next let's go back and this time take the left and unlock the second keystone called the Giant's Blood, which will enable us to wield a two-handed weapon in just one hand, so we can also use a shield on our offhand. And then finally from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are really good, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply want to fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and the skill gems, and then after that spend the rest of your leftover attributes into more strength. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again And for our Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning, you want to unlock the Colossal Capacity. Then second, get the Hulking Form. Then next we want to get the Airbreaker. And then finally, for our 4th Ascendancy, select the Mysterious Lineage to give ourselves a bit more defense. In PoE 2, earning skill points take a lot of hard work, so it will be wise not to spend your points recklessly. Of course, you can refund your passive points later, but only at a cost, so following a specific setup is extremely useful. If you are following this build, then make sure not to deviate from it, as some of the decisions that I made might not make sense at first, but is going to pay off later. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here, and don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and they should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. Our Fire Warrior build also is great at single target DPS, so we can also spend a bit points into the farming boss maps or the essences. So when we start, we wanna first of all get to this bottom right side like this. Then from here we go like this until we get all the way to the keystone called the Deadly Evolution. And then when all of these passives are done, then now we go to the middle and now take the middle path and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. The next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Forge Maul with the critical chance and the weapon speed. And for bonus stats, we want increased fire damage, increased physical damage, more accuracy, more strength, and leech percentages dealt of physical damage as mana. Next we also have the offhand called the Expert Brace Tower Shield. And for bonus stats, we want increased block chance, more armor, and resistances like fire and cold. Then for helmet we have the Expert Soldier Great Helm with armor, and for more we want increased max life, more to armor, more strength, and chaos resistance. Then for chest we have the Advanced Iron Cuirass with armor, and for more we need max life, more armor, lightning resistance, and more to strength. Then for the belt we have the Plate Belt with armor, max life, increased even more armor, and chaos resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Riveted Mitts with armor, and for more we need max life, increased armor, and resistances like fire and lightning. Then for boots we're using the Expert Trim Greaves with armor, and for bonus stats we need as much increased movement speed as possible, and also more armor and resistances like cold and chaos. Then for our first ring we got the Prismatic Ring with plus percentage to all elemental resistances, and for bonus stats we need increased fire damage, percentage to all elemental resistances, and cold resistance. While on the second one we got the Ruby Ring with fire resistance, and for more we want to go with max life, increased armor, and chaos resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Gold Amulet with increased rarity found of the items, and for extras we got more to spirit and more to strength. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap, and keep in mind that this is just a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Then next we have the runes. During early item progression, most gear is socketed with resistant runes like the Desert Rune, Glacial Rune, or the Storm Rune. And once elemental resistances have been capped, and elemental resistant runes are no longer necessary, then you want to opt in to increase their maximum life with body runes or consider socketing a soul core. So for our weapon we're using the Iron Rune. Then on our helmet we have the Glacial Rune, and then for the rest of our equipment we are going with the Storm Runes. And as far as getting this gear goes, by far the best way to get better gear in the campaign is to check the vendor in the town each time you level up, as vendors can change their offerings based on your level, so this is the best way to find upgrades. And then after level 65, you just want to keep continuing repeating your maps until tier 16. And again, for more in-depth guides on how to farm them, check out my gearing guide video. Then on top of this, we need to quickly look into the charms. Charms are incredibly useful, as by having the right one equipped at the right time can save you from dying. If you are struggling with certain bosses, then look into what damage type they are using, and then use that specific charm to increase your resistance. For me personally, I like to use the Amethyst charm for chaos damage, then the Ruby charm for fire damage, and finally the Sapphire charm for cold damage. But as I said, which one you choose will entirely depend on the enemies that you are fighting, so feel free to experiment and mix and match. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our first AoE rotation is pretty straightforward, and you want to start by using the Stampede into the pack of enemies. Then use the Bone Shatter to clear up remaining targets that are primed for a stun. You can also use the Leap Slam as a mobility skill, or to prime remaining enemies and then activate the Bone Shatter. Or then, the second rotation is for bosses, and when fighting single targets, so you want to use the Perfect Strike to heavy stun them. Then once the boss is heavy stunned, then cast the War Cry, Seismic Cry, Hammer of the Gods, and then the Perfect Strike for massive amounts of damage. And then from here, just keep our shouts and the Perfect Cry up, until the Hammer of the Gods refresh is needed. And then from here, just rinse and repeat. So, let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds. So click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.